What if I told you that everything you think you know about global business giants is a complete lie? Seriously, unstoppable global empires? It's an absolute myth. Okay, let's dive into this explainer and completely shatter that corporate illusion.
You hear iconic names, right? Toyota, Sony, Mitsubishi, and you just naturally assume they completely dominate every single corner of the globe. But do they actually rule the world? Well, spoiler alert, not even close.
We all picture this unstoppable global dominance, but the brutal reality? They are totally trapped in Asia. The hard data we're looking at today completely slaps this massive misconception right in the face.
Part 1. The reality check, where the data absolutely slaps the face. When researchers tracked the 64 largest Japanese multinational companies to measure their actual geographic reach, the imbalance they found was just staggering. Out of 64 megacorporations, an unbelievable 57 are almost entirely dependent on their Asian home region just to survive. Seriously, 57 out of 64, that is wild.
When you map out a company's unique advantages against its actual global footprint, the result is a massive regional trap. Almost everyone is stuck right at the bottom. Out of the top 64, only 3 incredibly rare exceptions have actually achieved true global reach: just Sony, Canon, and Mazda. And when we contrast those 3 true globals against the rest of the list, it's shocking. Legendary household giants like Mitsubishi, Hitachi, and Toshiba, they aren't global rulers at all. They actually average over 80% of their sales right in their own backyard.
And you know, it's not just where they sell their products to customers, it's where they physically build them too. Whether you're measuring the final sale to a consumer or where they plop down their factories, the results are identically shocking. They are firmly locked inside Asia. They literally do not operate globally. Which brings us to part 2. Strengths become fatal shackles.
Okay, let's dive into this bizarre paradox. Here is the ultimate success trap. The exact same secret weapons that made these companies unstoppable inside Japan became the heavy chains that trapped them there. Your greatest weapon literally becomes your cage.
We're talking about things like lifetime employment, deep supplier loyalty, those close-knit corporate networks they call keiretsu. These deeply cultural setups created unmatched productivity at home, they built immense trust, they guaranteed top-tier quality, but the second you step outside the Japanese ecosystem, boom, they completely fall apart. They are totally untransferable. It's a fatal cultural mismatch. See, home turf relies on tight networks and unspoken social contracts. But the global market? It demands ruthless flexibility and aggressive cost-cutting. When these giants try to export these highly specialized, locally tuned practices, the puzzle pieces just fail to fit. These companies are, quite literally, culturally landlocked.
Moving on to part 3, the failed escape attempt. Because, make no mistake, they definitely tried to break out. In 1992, the Japanese economic bubble violently popped. The domestic market collapsed, so by 1997, there was this desperate, panicked push to globalize. They had to escape to survive. But jump to the 2000s, a totally defeated retreat right back to Asia.
Take Nippon Steel, for example, an absolute industrial titan. To survive that historic crash, they desperately tried to slash local costs and force a massive push into global markets. They needed the world.
But despite massive, all-out strategic efforts, they completely failed to break free. Over 90% of their assets and sales remained fiercely tethered to Asia. They just couldn't replicate their success abroad.
Or how about Sumitomo Chemical, another massive giant? They famously put out these bold annual reports declaring their triumphant transformation into a, quote, truly global company. They literally bought into their own myth. But the brutal reality? 99% of Sumitomo Chemical's sales remained strictly locked in Asia. Their so-called globalization was pure fiction, their international income collapsed, and they had to retreat right back home.
And that leads us to our final section, the regional reality.
It turns out the globalization of business is largely an illusion. We actually live in an era of strict regionalization. That sweeping, borderless globalization we hear about every single day, it's mostly a myth, manufactured by our own lazy assumptions. The world isn't actually flat. It is highly, highly regional.
So it leaves us with this massive question. Is geography still destiny for the world's biggest corporations? Well, the data screams yes. No matter how huge and powerful a company gets, can it ever truly escape the gravitational pull of its own home turf? Next time you see a giant corporate logo, you've got to ask yourself, are they ruling the world or just dominating their own backyard?